Thank you,
Does
sir.
that guy have class?
Huh?
Does that man teach a class?
He does.
He would never teach me.
That is the
He
chair of
probably
the
does.
department. He is the boss.
I will go ahead.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so new chapter. We're nearly done with the book, guys. I have your exams to give back, so make sure I stop talking by 1:45, okay? All right, so first question then. Name one of the three types of knowledge. Name one of the three types of knowledge. Name one of the three types of knowledge. Question 2. Is age or experience more important to the development of a knowledge base? Is age or experience more important to the development of a knowledge base? Question 3. The time between the start of a stimulus and the beginning of the movement response is called what? The time between the start of a stimulus and the beginning of the movement response is called what? Is age or experience more important to the development of a knowledge base? All right, make sure you have your name on there. Swap off for me. We can do it. All right, ready? Question 1, your choices, your 3 are declarative, procedural, or strategic. All right, so if you've got one of those 3, that's 1 point. Question number 2, experience is more important. So if you've got experience, that's 1 point. And the time between the start of a stimulus and the beginning of the movement response is called simple reaction time. So if you've got reaction time, that's okay.
It's a reaction. What did this say?
Reaction,
She said it's reaction time.
because that's not quite the same thing.
Ah, cool.
All right, came in, guys. It's
I was like,
Okay, here we go. All right, so knowledge. Knowledge is power. That is true. Knowledge is power. Knowledge, if we are looking at our constraints model, what type of constraint do you think knowledge sits under? Functional, individual functional constraint. Okay? So it's to do with cognitive, with feelings, with understandings. So it's an abstract thing that's going on in our brains. All right? So knowledge, though, contributes hugely to success in sport. I have to be very knowledgeable about my sport to be successful. And a knowledge base is the amount of information that we have about a specific topic. All right? So some of the reasons that we see that performance is related to how big our knowledge base is that in the short term, we have less need to remember a great deal of information. So because I understand it so well, I can concentrate on doing other things. I don't have to keep remembering things because I do them straight away because I know them very well. We're much more effective using cognitive processes, so identifying cues in the environment or making a decision about a particular game play. And it means that we have to pay less demand to conscious attention and more demand to other things. So for example, when you're driving, right? Because in America you guys start driving very young, most of you have a lot of experience at driving. So how many times do you get in your car in the morning to drive to school? You do that drive every day, maybe more than once a day. How many times do you get to school and realize you don't actually remember driving to school? Right? So that happens a lot. Okay? So, because you just do it automatically, right? Hopefully, you were paying enough attention to stop at a red light. Right? But one of the problems is sometimes we zone out so much because the driving is so familiar that we drive straight through stop signs or red lights, right? If we're not paying attention. So we're able to learn more strategies the bigger our knowledge base is, right? So learning the strategy is part of the knowledge base. It's not just the doing the skill. I've got to know how and when to use the skill. What are the kinds of training techniques that are appropriate for my particular activity? What new equipment is out there that I might be able to use that would benefit my performance? All right? All those kinds of ideas feed into developing a knowledge base about a particular activity. So performance, we know, is facilitated. We see better performance with more practice of the actual motor skill, but also we see better performance with increased knowledge of a skill. All right? And we'll come back to that idea in a minute because it's quite an interesting aspect of knowledge that you can use well if you're working with beginners. Right? It's typically sport or dance form specific. So I can be a, let's see, I could be a fielder in cricket. Doesn't mean I'm going to be quite as good a fielder for baseball, right? I'm going to have a vague understanding that baseball's not the same game. So what I do with the ball when I catch the ball in cricket may not be the same as what I need to do in baseball. So typically then, children have a smaller knowledge base than adults, not because they're not capable of learning about the sport, but because they're not old enough to have a lot of experience at the sport yet. All right? And we'll see later on, older adults can use their knowledge base of a particular sport to offset structural defects that are starting to occur. Right? So as I get older, I might start to get arthritis, or I might be a bit weaker, or less flexible. That impacts the performance, but I can offset that a little bit the larger my knowledge base is in a particular skill. So if I can maintain movement in a sport that I've done for a long time, then we don't see quite such a drop in performance as we get older, because we've got all this understanding of what's going on. By the same token, a child can be better, can be more expert, can have a bigger knowledge base about a particular activity than an adult does. Right? So if you think about some sports where people are winning gold medals who are very young. Right? So less so in gymnastics now, but still gymnastics is one of the ones, right? Nadia Comaneci, if anybody remembers that name, was only 14 when she won the Olympic gold medal.
You mean the black girl from America?
No, Nadia was Romanian. The black girl from America was 16, yeah, 16 or 17. Still young, still a child, right? So they know a lot about their sport at a very young age. Okay? So it's not age-driven, it's experience-driven, but age can play a role. I mean, I'm not going to let a 6-year-old play football, so they can't learn about football, right? I could teach them things about football, but we're just not going to let a 6-year-old play.
In America, they got popcorn and it's like 4.
Don't tell me that. That gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Maybe knock each other the heck out.
That's not good. I want to know that. That's very, very bad. All right, so our types of knowledge then. Declarative knowledge is understanding of the factual information about the sport or the game, right, or the activity. So it's very specific to a particular game. So if I'm starting to teach children how to play soccer or basketball, then the information that they're going to learn and understand is specific to soccer and basketball. Procedural is the how-to. How do I do it? How do I follow the specific rules? Right? What's the how to use that information? Again, very specific to the topic. Right? So here I'm not generalizing. Here I'm learning a rule and it applies in this context, in this situation. The third type is strategic, and strategic is where we're aiming for, because that's the most useful scenario. Here I've got an understanding of general rules and strategies. Right? I can start to use an idea I learned in one game and put it somewhere else. I know it transfers to a different situation. So for example, in the textbook, they have give and go, right? So give and go is I'm taking the ball, I give the ball to a teammate, I continue to move forwards, and I can receive the ball back from the teammate, right? So when we're here, we would learn that in one game. And then if I, as the teacher, start teaching them a different game, I'm going to have to teach them give and go all over again in the new game, right? But once we get here, I know give and go applies to soccer, to football, to basketball, to field hockey, rugby, right? Any team game where we're aiming to get a ball to the end of the field, give and go is relative, right? I can use it in any of those. So once I understand that it's a transferable strategy amongst different games, I'm starting to get here. Does that make sense? Right? So expertise is specific to a skill. Most people are not expert at more than one thing. Very few. You get monster people like Marion. Who's the lady who lost her gold medal and actually went to jail for all of them?
Oh,
Sprinter.
you're talking about Glasgow lady. Lobo Jones or something like that.
Yeah.
She's
So,
not yet.
she's, I can't think of her name.
I know you're talking about that.
No.
Tom, who won track and here? Is she not right? Don't you know?
I'm a girl, right?
Okay, anyway, that lady won a sprinting, actually more than one, sprinting gold medal at the Olympics and retired. And now she plays semi-pro basketball. That's highly unusual for anyone to be that good at two different sports.
Well, they said people that have the best ability to change sports easily is baseball players. Because all the other sports require high degrees of hand-eye coordination, so when you transfer it from that to that, it's easy. Like,
Yeah, they would, but they wouldn't be expert.
because you have various,
Probably.
there's a lot of people that you gotta think that have done Bo Jackson,
That's not a lot of people. There are millions of people. That's a handful.
But like,
Michael Jordan.
I play basketball and soccer. That's 3 sports.
Yes, but there's only a handful of people, right? You guys are already special because you're expert at one thing.
Thank you.
But like,
You're welcome.
every pro player has played both like 2 sports, you know what I mean?
Not to expert levels though.
In college. Expert level in college or pro?
James Winston.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson.
Like expert means college or in pros?
Yeah, but we're still looking at a small number of people.
Absolutely, I hear what you're
It's
saying.
not a lot of people, honestly. There's not a lot of people who are expert at one thing, let alone more than one thing. So, what are the differences with what we do with this knowledge, whether we're a beginner or an expert? All right? So part of your argument is they can transfer knowledge from one sport to another sport. Right? So experts have a lot more of the type of knowledge about the rules, the strategies, so they've got more declarative and procedural knowledge compared to a novice, right? They've got a lot more experience at the game than a novice. They also structure what they understand about the game in a more useful way. So they organize the information more methodically to recall it. Right? Knowledge is very tightly linked with memory. So on, what day is today? Wednesday. Friday, we'll look at some ideas about memory. They recognize patterns more quickly because of their knowledge, their understanding. So D, when you're playing football, how do you know what the opposing team are going to do? You don't know. What? Okay, what are you looking for that they might be doing?
Like personnel or something? Like,
From patterns, right? When you sit and watch video, is it always only about the technique? So what else is it about?
It's the majority of
The formation, right?
Majority of formation.
So formation is a pattern. So the more experience I have, right? The more experience I have, the quicker I am able to recognize a pattern. So it's a little bit different, I think, for softball. Do you girls have to recognize patterns?
But
A
like, if
little
somebody-
bit, maybe, depending on which base you're going to try to throw the ball to, perhaps. But you know what you're good at recognizing? Ball flight. Spin on the ball. Right? Other things that a beginner would not know about the game. Okay.
Little martial arts, like the UFC guys. You said there's only a handful of people, but all those guys are multiple experts in different fields.
All right, we're going to move on. That's our knowledge base. So, by now you know there's a developmental trend for everything, right? So we have a developmental trend that we see for the development of knowledge, of a knowledge base. So the sequence is declarative, followed by procedural, followed by strategic if you ever get there, right? So I have to have a lot of experience to move through these levels and get to the final stage. All right, so declarative knowledge provides the foundation, kind of like we talked about with our skill development. All right, declarative knowledge is like fundamental skills, lays the foundation for everything else to come. Procedural knowledge, and then finally expert. All right, so we have to have a lot of experience to be able to generalize information across contexts. And some of the research, the book has a lot of research studies in there. There will not be questions on specific research studies, but the idea that the research is trying to teach you is the key, right? So they ran a study with some young boys playing basketball, and they had beginners, novices, and kids who were quite good, and also kids that never played basketball, right? And they ran them through a summer camp. I think it was a summer camp, something like that, some kind of camp. And when they got to the end, they found that both the novices and the kids with more experience were able to make better decisions. All right, so here's learning the rules. Here's making appropriate decisions. Do I pass the ball? Do I hang on to the ball? Right? A beginner often makes the wrong decision there. As I get more experience, I start to know when I should pass the ball off and when I should hang on. And strategic is transferring, making connections, putting pieces of the pie together for myself, not waiting for the coach to tell me. Okay. So they all improved, except, not surprisingly, the kids that were the control group that weren't getting to play basketball. All right? So we saw an improvement in their knowledge test at the end of the seasonal camp. I can't remember what it was. Right? So we'll come back to that idea in a minute. They did a similar one with some children playing baseball, and their ability to problem solve within the game was much more strongly related to their knowledge of the game than it was to their age. So they had 10-year-olds who were making the same errors as 7-year-olds and vice versa. 7-year-olds who were making good decisions. Right? So the research just backs up this idea that it's really the experience that's the key. Right? And maybe we're able to acquire knowledge a little more quickly than we can acquire the actual motor skill. So in this study, go back to this study, they saw this improvement in the knowledge test here, but there was no improvement in skill level across this season, not even for the experts. So their actual motor skills didn't get any better, but their knowledge about the sport improved a lot, and therefore they saw an improved performance in these children. Okay. Does that?
Yes.
Right? So just be thinking about how much do you know about your sport? If I showed you a picture of one of your favorite players in a particular t-shirt, would you know what year, which game that photo came from?
Yes.
Right? I did when I was young with gymnasts, right? My favorite gymnast, I could look at a picture and I knew exactly whether that was taken at the Olympics, at the Europeans, or at the World Championship, just because of the leotard she was wearing. Right? If I asked you what you needed to do to correct a problem that someone was having in your sport, would you be able to give me a reasonably good idea of what I needed to do to correct the problem mechanically? Right? Even if you couldn't approach that from a developmentally appropriate aspect, in your head, you would know what needed to be put right. Because you've watched loads of it. When it's on the telly, is it the first thing you pick to watch? Right? Well, not if the volleyball girls are playing on the beach, but normally, right? You would pick your sport. Okay, so we know so much about what we do. That's one of the reasons why it's so hard to go back and teach beginners, because it's really difficult to remember what it felt like not to know anything about this move. Okay? And you forget your learning curve because it's all there in your head all the time. You just know it. It's instinctive. Right? So it's very difficult to go back. It takes a special kind of teacher to go back and work with beginners, because it's very difficult to try to relate what I know to what they're going to understand. Right? I can't use all these big clever words. I can't tell them all these clever things. I have to be able to take it way back down to their level and pick the thing that they could understand. Right? So that's tricky. That's what makes being a good coach or a good teacher. It's part of the skill. Right? How do I get what I want across to the person? Do we need anything on here? That's just more studies. You can have a look at those in the chapter. So again, all the research is that it's years of experience, and that means that children or youth or teenagers could be more knowledgeable than adults, even though often the adults don't want to admit that. Okay? We don't like being told by our teenagers that they know better than we do. Okay? But sometimes they do. It just depends what the topic is. Okay? When we look at older adults, we've got a little bit more problem. All right? So we don't have hardly any research on what happens to knowledge bases and how we use knowledge bases when we're moving as we get older. So we kind of infer some information based on ideas, but it's not very widely studied. But we do believe that the more I know, the better I am able to balance, right? If I know tennis really well, then I know the chances are the opponent is going to play this particular kind of shot. So I can start moving in that direction a little bit earlier, and maybe I can get to the ball on time to hit it back. Right? Whereas if I had to wait, because I didn't know what the shot was going to be, then I can't move quickly enough to get over there. Right? So the experience, we can use that idea of affordances. Certain researchers would say that the experience, the knowledge base, allows them to perceive more affordance in a movement opportunity. Right? Depends on what kind of research perspective the person is coming from. Also, what's really cool, the thing I really like, is that if we take an older adult and give them something brand new to try, if I don't just teach them the move, if I teach them about the activity, that helps them improve their performance a little bit faster. Right? link that to if I'm improving more quickly, I'm having probably a little more fun because I'm being a bit more successful. So it's a brand new idea, I've never done this before, but I'm having quite a bit more success than I expected to have. So that makes it a little bit more fun, so I'm more likely to come back and try it again. Right? So we can tie the whole thing together even when we look at older adults. Right? So if you decide that you're going to go teach a senior class at the rec center, right, in your spare time, and you are just trying to teach them the movement patterns, right? Think about expanding their experience. Can I teach them could I teach them some history about the activity? Right? Could I teach them some biomechanics that are involved, really basic biomechanic principles, balance or strength, right? Or a lever? What could I teach them? Can I teach them the rules if there are rules? Right? What could I teach them? Could I teach them a good stretching exercise that would help this particular activity? Right? The more I can give them information, not just the skill, the better off they're going to be and the more enjoyable it will be for them. Oh yeah, we're getting tests. All right, we'll come back to memory and speed of cognitive functioning on Friday.